I looked and I could
By
not.
the way, that was me. That's me.
It's coming out of my computer too.
Yeah, isn't that wow? The Doppler
My
effect.
computer too.
I'm not able to find an option to turn that on or off. So at this point, I think it's just something that Zoom has done, not optional. Anyways, here we are, Worldwide Slot Car Chat number 59, and we're gonna talk slot cars. Before John monopolizes the show and tell, because he said he had a whole lot of show and tell apparently, does anybody else have anything they want to show and or tell? Okay, John, take it.
I have a tell.
Okay, go ahead, Chris.
On the weekend, actually yesterday, I was up at Ernie's, and we finally got our power supplies for the wood track, and we hooked up a couple of lanes. And it's been almost 2 years since I've played with my Eurosport cars, and we glued in the track and played with those. And after 2 years of not playing with them, you can't believe, like I can't believe how quick they are again. They're just insanely fast. So power supplies are in. We've got it's a 6-lane track. We've got 150 amps. And we should be all set.
I saw a video today that he posted, or that he sent to me.
You're muted, Dennis.
No, I'm not.
I can't hear you.
Well, I'm not muted.
Yeah, your connection ain't so good, so maybe you're having.
Can't hear.
Yeah.
My connection?
No, you're fine, Dennis. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was just saying that Ernie sent me a little video that he'd made of about 10 laps that he had done with the Eurosport, and he was down into the 5 point. I think I timed it a little off my own stopwatch, and looked like 5.5 second laps. So yeah, track looks really nice, very smooth, nice rhythm to it. I can't wait to get up there sometime.
Yeah, no, it's at 5 seconds. We just put a tiny little bit of medium compound in a couple of corners, and it was even still a little skittery. So I suspect we're going to be getting a lot quicker than that 5 seconds. But after not having run them and then running them again, it's just, for guys who have never run anything like that, it's just astounding how bloody quick the things are. Just as if we're doing, we would, if you had a 30,000 RPM NSR slotted, whatever, with spectacular tires on it, really well done. The Eurosports would probably do 3 laps to your 1, maybe more. It's ridiculously fast.
No.
Sorry, I keep taking my headphones in and out. Sorry, John, you were saying something?
No, I was.
No.
Now we're battling.
Oh, okay.
Sounds great. I mean, people still do that as long as people are having fun, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and I mean, we've got the 6-lane Polo car downstairs. So, we're thrashing around on that. But if you've never driven one of these things, it's just unbelievable.
I'm sure I would be terrified by that I would just completely demolish a car because it's so fast.
Well, we're going to have a bunch of classes. There's very few guys. We'll have a couple of races, Eurosport races, where some guys will come up from the States. But our local crowd will have a few classes of cars with, sort of Falcon 50, 60,000 RPM motors with sponge tires, and those will be completely manageable on that track. But the cost of Eurosports, the maintenance of Eurosports, and the intensity of Eurosports is just not for everybody.
Definitely not.
Are those cars like the ones you could barely see?
They're getting there. The Eurosports aren't allowed to have side dams like all the air control. So they're, you know, the wing cars are the current world record on 155-foot king track is actually held by a Canadian guy, a friend of mine, Brad Friesner. And for 155-foot track, the current world record is 1.286 seconds.
It's just insane.
Yeah, so the Eurosport cars, but that track is a big bank track. Like it's got huge, great big banks. The Eurosport tracks are all essentially flat and much more like a road course, and the cars have basically the same motors and chassis, basically, but they don't have all the side wing control and stuff like that on them.
I've got a picture if anybody wants to see that kind of car. Here's a chassis. Can you see that?
Yep.
This one is called a GT12, and it's basically very similar to a Eurosport car in the way that the frame is constructed. The only difference is that this one has a rather large and heavy lump of a motor in the back of it. It's a C-can. The Eurosport motors are much smaller and run with samarium cobalt magnets instead of ceramic magnets. So the whole motor is much smaller and much faster. And because it's lighter, the construction of the frame is a little different. The bodies are not a lot different. I don't know if I have a body. Yeah, there's one. Now that's a high downforce body. The Eurosport cars don't have quite as much side dammers or side fin as these ones, but they're similar in looks.
Now, does the aerodynamics do they really work in that, Dennis?
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, the air control works so much that if you at the back here, and around the sides here, if you don't reinforce these pieces with some body armor from the inside, you can actually feel the difference in lap and see the difference on the clock in lap times.
Yeah.
If you stiffen up the sides of it, normally what we do is we let the bodywork hang down behind the rear wheel a little more, and if you stiffen that up, it actually makes the car quicker. So yes, it does work, but we're not talking aerodynamics here. We're talking pure shifting of air, right? This is mechanics, not dynamics, if you know what I mean. We're not talking pressure differentials and speed differentials. We're talking the sheer displacement of a mass of air, and that's what creates the downforce or the side forces or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I just thought I'd show you that.
No, thank you for the visual. That definitely helps.
Goes below. That particular car belongs to my friend Russell in South Africa. He just finished building it, which is why it looks so perfect. He's second only to Chris Walker when it comes to being unbelievably anal about clean cars.
Hey.
Have
you got a cold, Chris?
Hey.
That's a compliment.
Yeah. Chris sounds like he's got a cold.
Yeah, it does.
No, I've got these. I'm on my wife's computer with and I put these headphones into. I gotta take because she's doing something in the room as well. So.
Oh, okay.
I hate having earphones in when I.
All right.
It sounds like you're sanding something or opening a walnut.
That was me. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
So it's kind of on a tangential topic. I was contacted to print some controller holders for a guy in South Carolina for D's auto parts sale. D's, is it auto sales or auto parts? Hold on. Looking in the wrong folder. D's Auto Sales and Slot Car Track in South Carolina. It's an 8-laner of some sort. I don't have any pictures or anything like that. Let's see, where did I'll see where I shipped him to, see what city he's in. But anybody in South Carolina, there's an auto sales place with an 8-lane slot car track in, wait for it, should have prepared earlier. Come on, PayPal. Okay, here we go. Open, there we go. Gaffney. I have no idea where Gaffney is, but if you know the word Gaffney, South Carolina, then go to D's Auto Sales, and he apparently has or is setting up an 8-lane slot car track, and was asking me if DeFalco controllers worked in the controller holders, which they do. Pretty much everything with a trigger that's not a solid piece of plastic hangs on the controller holders just fine. Anybody here know anything about South Carolina or Gaffney, South Carolina? I never heard of it until this guy sent me an email saying he wants controller holders.
It may be the track that he bought from Mark Campbell in the one that we built for the 2009 Toronto Worlds, because it went down there somewhere. But I will have to check on my addresses, but it definitely went to South Carolina somewhere. And if it is that track, it's just an absolutely stunning track.
Chris, is that an Ogilvy track?
No, it's an MTT track.
Okay.
See if I can find D's Auto Sales here. D's Auto Sales, Cherokee Avenue. Satellite view.
Greg, maybe they've got a website and photos of the track.
You are smart, sir. Let me see.
Yeah, yeah.
Nope, no website according to Google. So not yet. But oh, it's all right, I'm gonna share this.
It doesn't sound good.
You know, it's what it is. That's D's Auto Sales right there.
That's
So he's probably got a track in this building here, maybe. I don't know, but it's an 8-laner of some sort. And he's,
Yeah, somehow I doubt that it's going to be something that came from Canada. I would think that they probably have an oval or a tri-oval.
Yeah, this looks more like Breaking Bad.
I was going to say, I think the majority of their business is in parts.
oh, let's see.
Yeah, well, maybe. Parts plus.
There's
Yeah, exactly.
oh, if you do street view, you can see how old the pictures are. There we are.
Oh yeah, that's definitely Breaking Bad.
Yeah, because you don't want to race slot cars on meth, do you?
Yeah, that's D's Auto Sales there.
Oh, there you go.
Well,
I mean, that's a nice looking shed right there. He might have a.
Hey, that's an El Camino there.
There'll be a small 8-lane oval in there
yeah,
somewhere.
that's what I think. Yeah.
It's an NASCAR oval. But hey, you know, slot racing. If you live near D's Auto Sales, go knock on the door and hang out with D.
And if you haven't raced on an oval, it's a heck of a lot more challenging than you think.
That is absolutely true. I helped with a NASCAR proxy or two, and that takes some concentration.
It gets pretty brutal, and the shorter the oval, the worse it is.
Oh yeah, this was a 4x12 or a 6x12 or something like that. It was a home track 4-lane oval.
It's the same way in the real world too. It's why.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's why Lewis Hamilton won't do Indy.
Well, I'm all out. Anybody else got anything before we let John take over the stage? All right, take it away, John.
Oh, okie dokie. So the first thing, again, this is because this is Dennis and Chris. I just want to, I took your advice here and I took a shot at another chassis. And what I did was, Chris, you suggested using a lighter gauge of steel wire, which I thought, okay, I'll give that a try. And it's the same basic design as I had before. I kind of tried to make my own little spacers for the wheels.
Good.
You can zoom in and out, John.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I beg your pardon. I'm sorry.
If you want to, just pointing out.
Yeah, yeah. And what I tried to do also is, as you gentlemen do, because you have talent, I tried to sort of elevate the front axle tube so that we would have, I guess, some proper movement here. Okay, so that was my design, and then I thought, okay, I'll solder it together. I'll just other shots of it here, and that's what it ended up looking like. And of course, I know, Dennis, what you're saying wasn't hot enough. I mean, I've got, basically, lead lake and
You're getting there. Don't worry.
I'm
you're
getting there. So, of course, my daughter, I showed her, and she said, well, how about we do another design and let me give it a go. So this is still mine. And upside down, you can see that's not too bad on the bottom. It's better on the bottom than the top, which is me all over. So this is my daughter's. And as you can see, she can solder. So she decided on a narrower pan. And I guess she looked at Chris's, I've got photos of some of your builds, Chris. And so she took a square tube that fit the, I think that's 032. I'm not quite sure what the size of
Yes,
wire
it will
is.
be.
And so this is hers before she cleaned it up. But you can see how, well, I guess youth, steady hand, and I guess some talent.
Did you use the same iron as you did?
Yep.
Okay.
She used a torch.
Ah, different.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason.
Oh, okay. But hers turned out much nicer.
Because she got it hotter.
That's probably what did it. Yeah. So I think I'm going to go and try a torch next time. And even on this side, you can see it just flowed so nicely.
Cool. Have you run them yet?
No, actually, I just got these. We were messing about with this today. So this is as far as we've gotten with them. And
Looks promising.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially since
They are really nice and simple.
They are, and this one is even lighter than the other one because there's less brass.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'll put some nice aluminum wheels on that one. But I also wanted to share something. Of course, I guess you folks know we're selling those Porsche 356 body kits, and one of the chaps who purchased a kit in the Netherlands sent me some photos of what he did with his car, and you have to see the work this gentleman did. It's really nice, and you got to see his track. And I asked permission from him to actually to show, and he said by all means. So let me take you through his build of his 356, and this is his chassis, which is very similar to the one that I did. And I guess we're of the same age, so you can see that we have the same issue with solder, perhaps. And that's how it looks mounted to the body. But wait till you see what the body looks. Look at the detail he did on his car. Like it turned out really, really well. There's the rear. I love the crossed flags as well. You can see the driver that he detailed the driver, the interior. I don't know if you can see it over here. Let me zoom in, but he actually put needles in the oh, hang on, sorry. Here we go. He actually put needles in the I guess speedometer you can't see, but in this gauge as well. Yeah, he actually painted needles in. It's just lovely, lovely job. And then this is some shots of it on his track is an homage to Le Mans, and it's just a beautifully well made and scenic Carrera track.
That track looks familiar. Are you willing to name this customer?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, his name is Frank Peter van der Goot.
Do you know does he post on any forums?
That I don't know. He used to be a driving instructor in Europe, apparently, like a race driver, driving instructor.
Oh, that's a great looking track. Great looking track.
It's beautiful. Yeah, it's really nice. And he also posted a video of it as well. So going around the track on his YouTube channel. But yeah, I mean, I'm really, really pleased with the way that the kit gets made up. It looks really quite good.
Yeah, it's very nice.
So there we go. That's it for me.
Oh man, you were talking up like you had just a half an hour worth of stuff.
Wow, I thought I was trying to cut it short because I was told that I'm a little overbearing and have
Oh,
to
stop
take it.
talking, John.
Now, who would ever say such a thing of John?
Yeah. That's right.
Do you have any more? I mean, because
No, that's it. Really.
well, since we're ready to start another topic, does anybody else have any show and tell things that just popped into their head? I got a couple of things I want to ask the
I
experts.
have a question for Dennis.
All right, go ahead, Neil.
Hey, Dennis, what I was looking at the John's soldering his chassis. Does resistance soldering work on slot cars? Would that work?
The answer is yes, although I haven't done it, but I know that our friend Alan Schwartz in Baltimore, who goes by Akiri Martini on some of the forums, he's done quite a bit of resistance soldering. But I've personally never tried it.
Okay, because it looked intriguing because the way it operates, it's so direct and the heat goes exactly where you want it instantly.
And if you can, as long as you can get into where you need to get into, right? Because you need to put in two electrodes of some sort and hold them in the position and then still apply the solder. So, you know, you might need three hands, but yeah, he's done it and he swears by it, but I have never tried it personally.
Yeah, I was thinking about trying it.
Yeah, give it a go. Right? It's always something, you know, that's how we learn. This is a completely empirical hobby. There are no textbooks. Everything is done by trial and error.
Exactly.
And by the time the textbooks are written, there's more trial and error to be done.
Correct.
So I wanted to get expert opinion. I was looking for the pictures. Somebody posted on one of the Facebook slot car, just general slot car groups a few days ago. They were a new member. They had found this Cox Chaparral, new inbox. It was like mint, beautiful white, obviously never exposed to the air or sun. The box looked in fantastic condition, like it had just been on a shelf for 50 years. They were like, is this worth anything? And I'm like, oh shit, somebody's gonna be like, yeah, I'll give you $50 for it. And then I'm like, no, don't take any offers right now until you do the research. And I really wanted to show those pictures to you guys. I spent an hour this morning trying to dig those up, but Facebook being Facebook. I'm sure you guys remember what I'm referring to, or some of you might. My main question is, because I know that it's fairly common in a lot of the other collectible industries, is has there ever been knockoffs of the Cox Chaparral? And if so, how do you identify a knockoff versus a genuine article? Because when you see something that's from that long ago in that good of a condition, I wonder if there were ever knockoffs, and could that be a knockoff?
Well, they made a lot of those, Greg.
Yeah.
So it's not. Sorry, I was just going to say it wouldn't be beyond the reason to find one that's pristine, that's never been touched.
Which Chaparral is it? Do you know?
It was
There's three.
the Chaparral 2, the original 2.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was mint in box. I don't know that anybody's ever tried a knockoff. I know that people have copied the boxes, but
Yes.
in general, they've always said that it's a copy.
Not always.
Oh, okay. I've never seen anybody try to copy that particular body. I know that there are resin copies of the Chaparral 2E, the Cox Chaparral 2E. There are resin copies out there, and primarily, I think the main reason that there's no copies of the original Chaparral 2 is just as John said, that they made a boatload of those things.
Yep.
I mean, there was talk at one stage, and I don't know whether it's true, that they'd made 1 million of them.
Yeah, that was actually one of Jim Hall's biggest sources of revenue when he had Chaparral cars, just that sticker from Cox, because he got a royalty off each one, and it was
Yeah.
significant money.
Is it? I haven't seen the pictures. Is it still in all its bubbles and
Yes.
blister
Yeah.
packs?
Yeah,
Well,
completely.
in which case I would bet my bottom dollar it's original. To duplicate that chassis, that's a cast magnesium chassis and cast magnesium wheels.
Mhm.
So if anybody wanted to duplicate a set of cast magnesium wheels today, go right ahead. They're not going to sell it. They're not selling it for 50 or $100. So end of the day, that's probably worth, $300-400 depending
Yeah.
on,
And I think that's what
you,
somebody said, that it was about 400. Greg, was it you that said that?
I went straight to eBay, and I said, don't take any offers, because it's what the market will bear. So
Right.
Sure.
what you do is go to eBay, you search for the thing, and then you filter down to sold items, so you can see what that actually sold for, not what some joker is asking for, but what it actually sold for.
Right.
And the ones that were in the same condition, fully sealed in the original bubble, good condition cardboard insert, and good condition bubble, good condition box, and everything, 400 was the low mark. I saw
Yeah.
some go for over $800.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm like, I mean,
Because that's a collector piece. That's something you don't touch. You display it, because there are so many of them that you can just buy, fix up, and run.
well,
Mhm.
and to your point, you were saying, there were, conceivably a million of these things. Sure. But that, when there were a million of those things on shelves, that was before people in general were buying things for the sole purpose of leaving it on the shelf and hoping that it increases in
Yeah,
value.
of course.
These things were manufactured to be used.
Yeah.
And a lot of them actually ended up in landfill when the company went under.
because they weren't valued at the time. That's why those
Yeah, there was.
are such a high value these days.
And it was actually I guess the receiver that was part of the deal when they went into receivership and bankruptcy, was they had to destroy I don't know about the molds. I think the molds as well, but certainly any stock on hand was basically buried.
if he gets 400 for it, Greg, that's not a bad price at all.
Mhm.
It's not a rare car. They are around, and prices are coming down because a lot of the collectors, 10 years ago, that car was worth 3 times what it is right now.
Mhm.
But pretty much everybody who wants one
Has
sort
one.
of has one right now. So you get the sort of the fringe buyers who are going, well, I don't know if I really,
And in that condition, like you said, there's a bunch out there that you can buy and fix up. If you wanted to plop it on the track, that's what you would do. In this case,
oh yeah,
nobody in their right mind would take that thing out of the package.
Not with there being so many out there already.
I'm decidedly
Which-
anti-shelf queen, but that there is no possibility that even I would take that thing out of the box.
but that market of guys who want to spend $400 or $500 and just put it on a shelf and look at it is a shrinking. A lot of those guys already have 2 or 3 of them on the shelf that they can look at.
Or they're in their own boxes by now.
Yeah.
That's why I went to the recently sold items on eBay. That's usually a pretty good indicator of an existing market rather than an old market. So yeah, that person had a good chance of getting a few $100s out of that thing, I would expect.
Oh yeah.
I lost.
And that's
What happened?
That's by far the cheapest of the chaparrals that they did. Mag chassis 2E are, if you have a 2D mint in box, you'll be a happy chappy.
Yeah, and if you have a 2E mint in box,
Mag chassis,
yeah, mag chassis, the mag chassis mint in box, you could probably get $1,000 for it by now.
Yeah, they used to sell 10 years ago pretty regularly for about $5,000.
Dang. Well, hopefully for that.
I didn't buy a lot of them.
No.
No.
Any of them. If you find that picture, Dennis, feel free to flash it up.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm looking and looking. I can't find it at the moment.
I even searched for myself in those groups because they usually should pull up posts that you've replied to, and I figured, and I still couldn't find it. So I don't know. Maybe
Yeah, I don't know where he put it. Quite honestly, I don't remember. I do remember seeing it, but I don't remember where it was.
it's possible that that person deleted it, or it got deleted by their request or something because they didn't want a bunch of people hassling them, and they decided what to do, and they didn't need that post to be online anymore. That would explain why none of us can find it anymore. But yeah, it's good to know that copying them to knock them off is so difficult that it would not be financially feasible to do so.
Right.
Yeah, there have been lots of knockoffs of other things over the years, right? I mean,
Yeah.
somebody started with knockoffs of.
Right. I fully expect there to be copycat chassis and copycat bodies and copycat everything else, but in the box, in the bubble, on the card, all separated out, full kit, every piece was there. That's not worth knocking off, apparently.
And well, not that chassis, because that's a cast magnesium chassis. Some of the cocked chassis, like some of the ISO chassis, which are just bent up pieces of aluminum, there's been a few different guys bashing those things out. All you need is a punch press and a sheet of aluminum, and away you go. But to make a mold and then cast magnesium and finish it up.
Yeah, and they were die cast. It's not even like it was a pressure die cast. It's not. It's not just a regular. You can't melt down a Ford piston or two and cast it in a sand pit in your back garden.
No.
I don't know. Somebody out there probably tried.
And just I mean, on that topic, just to think about it, every single Cox car model had completely different and accurate cast magnesium wheels. So the Ferrari Dino had different wheels than the BRM versus the Lotus versus the Lola versus the Cheetah. They were just sort of the mystique behind Cox is not how they ran, but it's today how they looked and the quality of the engineering that went into them. What I thought was my first real slot car was a 124 scale Cox T modified Cheetah. And I thought this is going to be, wait till the guys see me go. Well, I took it to the track that I was working at the time. The only bloody track it would go around was a 90-foot banked oval. It was just useless on all the other tracks. But absolutely gorgeous, and the engineering and the way they were built were spectacular. So that's the big sort of panache behind the Cox cars and why they're extremely valuable today.
Well, yeah, because they were designed and put together with quite a bit of passion.
Oh, well, they're gorgeous. I mean, the attention to detail on them was great. Some really cool engineering things at the time. A lot of them had tapered axles, and the inside of the wheels also had a taper so that when you put, they went on straight and true, and they were great. I love them.
And to your point, Chris, considering that these were really thought of as toys, I mean, that's just unreal.
Well, no, these weren't toys. These were hobbyists' cars. I've had a love affair with them for the last 20 years or so, and I don't have any pictures with me now, but I've taken a few Cox cars and then made some pens to go on them and changed a bunch of things on them. And with some of the stuff that I know how to do now, I've made them into like really good slot cars, not spectacular slot cars by all standards, but I've got a couple of Cox cars now that run like no Cox cars ever run before, but they're very cool.
Yeah, no, they are. No, absolutely.
Well, I appreciate the education on that, and I hope that person gets a good good price for their collectible. The other thing that I wanted to ask about is probably only going to be answerable by John Underwood because I don't see any other Brits in the list. John, are you listening?
No, I'm still awake. Thank you.
So the question I had was, so I was talking tires with somebody and, recommending urethane for their sport track use because they're so easy to true and stuff. But they were in the UK and they were trying to find, sources for urethane tires and they weren't finding any. Do you ever purchase urethanes?
Not really. The urethanes I use are on classic cars.
Ortman's or
Borrowed something from Nick or something like that. Someone, Colin from RS, he probably does them.
Colin from RS Slot Racing is he's the UK distributor for Ortman tires, and he's got thousands of them. So Google on RS Slot Racing. His name is Colin Spark. When he is not running his pet shop, he makes Ortman tires, and he's a really good guy, good customer service. No issues.
Yeah, so I've spoken with Colin a couple of times at swap meets, he's helped me out.
He used to be the UK and European supplier for BWA wheels and a bunch of BWA products. And then when Al Penrose, BWA, folded up his tent, Colin took a few of the wheels that he had from Al and has reproduced a wide variety of Al's BWA wheels, plus some really neat 13-inch wheels for Formula One cars. And he's also done a really neat series of 10-inch aluminum set screw wheels with urethane tires for minis and little Cortinas and stuff like that. So it's worth having a browse through his website. He's got tons of tires.
Perfect. There you go. And I've only used one pair of Ortmans, and it was a fantastic set of urethane tires. So I certainly have only.
Unfortunately,
it might have been old Ortmans.
Well, yes. Long story short, the very first iteration of Ortmans, which were the best urethane tire by a mile. Like there's nothing even made today that's even close. They had a compound that was banned by the German government. They used to use this compound underground pipes and stuff like urethane pipes and PVC pipes and stuff. Anyway, that was banned. The second iteration, which was known as Ortman Blues, were hideous. And now they've gone to the third iteration, which again has a gray dust when you supply them. And they're as good as any other urethane tires around right now. So, the unobtainium Ortmans are, if you go into a race that specifies urethane tires, you can build a fairly average car and put some of the original Ortmans on them and win quite handily. Yeah, and I got a whole bunch.
You still have some?
I have hundreds of them.
Nice. Okay.
I must remember that.
When we used to, when I was helping Ernie out at his previous in 2006, we ran Ortmans exclusively on the wood track, and we'd just buy bags and bags and bags of them in bulk for all of our different classes. So we had thousands of them passing through the shop.
Good to know. All right. Hassle Chris when we want some really good urethane tires.
Yeah. You thought that Chaparral 2 was going to be expensive, eh?
I did find some photos of a couple of the Cox cars that I've restored. I don't know if anybody wants to look at. You want to see them?
Not yet.
Sure.
Oh. Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, so that's a Dino. with, as Chris was saying, with the correct Dino wheels. That's what it looked like. That's what it looks like underneath. It's a magnesium casting with a long drop arm, and there's a little aluminum stamping at the back to hold the motor in and allow it to slide back and forward a little to change the gearage. So anything that, yeah, okay. This is a Ford GT, one of their early ones. I still have a Rusket motor in this because it's one of the early N-bell drives, and I haven't found a Cox motor for it yet. But again, the same kind of magnesium chassis with a drop arm. Here's my my Chaparral 2 and its chassis.
Painted.
And sorry?
Painted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a bad body.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. And then this is a Lotus 40, also painted and with a couple of replica parts on the top, but with the stock chassis underneath it. And so there it is. It's the Cheetah, but just the regular Cheetah with the regular chassis, not the team modified one. What Cox started calling the team modified ones were the ones that have the adjustable gear mesh at the back, with that little aluminum stamping, and they have a much longer drop arm down the middle.
And sponge tires.
Did they come with sponge tires?
Yeah, they came with sponge tires mounted on the Cox, the 5-spoke Cheetah wheels.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have a couple of those. All right, so that's some of those.
Good stuff. Well, that was pretty much all the interesting topics that I had planned. I can dig something out of the waste bin of topics. Does anybody have any other show and tell or questions or anything they want to touch back?
I have a question if anyone's got the time. I've got a fly sidewinder that I'd like to replace the gears in, because I replaced the motor and the stock pinion gear. The motor in that car had flute splines on it, so my pinions I have on hand don't fit. I have one and it's plastic, and I don't care for it. I mic'd it at 6.5 millimeters, but I figured if I'm going to do it, I'd go ahead and replace the crown gear as well. Now it mic'd out at 18. The spur. I'm sorry. The 18 at 18.35. Anyone have a suggestion for whose gears will fit this thing?
It's if you use a 6.5 mil pinion from anybody, as long as it's a 2 mil bore. Okay. What I would do is put a little power to the motor and take a file and lightly take a couple of the splines, just take them down a bit, and then use a 19 mil slotted spur gear. I've done thousands of them.
Okay, because I'm seeing NSR has an 18.5.
And too small.
Well, the one I have on there mic'd at 18.35.
Okay.
Okay. So go with a 19 and just.
Yep. If you look at their conversion, Slotted does a few conversion kits, and it's a 6.5 mil pinion and a 19 mil. Our clubs run tons and tons of fly cars, sidewinders, Le Mans. Everybody's got like 4 or 5 of them. I probably built 60 with 16.5 mil pinions and 19 mil spurs.
Okay. Any suggestion on gearing?
What motor are you going to use?
It's Piranha 20,000.
A 21K Piranha? Like anyone in the 3 to, do you run magnets?
Yes.
Okay. I would go 3.1 to 1 and up, like 3.2, 3.3. If you're running with magnets, you'll be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, like a 1134 or a 12 or a 1034 or 1134.
Okay, because the stock pinion was an 11, and I'm too damn lazy. My eyes suck too bad to count the.
Yeah, I don't forget. that's a 19 mil diameter spur, Dennis. So you might want to go up a tooth or two. You start getting funky if you get down low in teeth.
So you think about
Because
30, a 10, 1136 maybe?
1136 would be fine.
Yep,
Great.
sounds good.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Gentlemen.
because then you're not playing silly bugger with the tooth profile on a 19 mil spur.
Although you're playing a little bit of silly bugger with the 11 tooth on this pinion, but not too bad.
Well, no,
1136 will be nice.
Yeah.
Thank you, gents.
Awesome. Hey,
And they're super smooth when you do that too. They
yeah.
really work well.
Yeah.
Well, it's fairly smooth right now, but the pinion on it is one that has the ridge on one end. You know, it's not, the gears don't go all the way through.
Yep.
And it's plastic, and I don't mind plastic. It's, you know, I'm not running competitions here. It actually was smoother than the brass one that was on it. That thing was pushed on so far, it was damn near up against the can. There's so little room in there.
Yeah.
So I was hoping a thinner crown and a different spur might make it a little bit smoother. It's a fun car to drive. I like it. I just thought it would make it a little smoother. I actually have an 18,000 RPM Piranha that might go in it too if it's a little too much for this. I run magnets like a maniac, so.
Yeah. What are you doing for the bushings on the rear, Brian?
Right now I left them stock, but if I'm going to pull the axle apart to change the gears, I'll probably go with slotted axles and at least, I don't know, a suggestion for bushings.
For what you're doing, if you just get a pair of slotted double flange bushings, you'll be absolutely fine. When you set it up, just try and make sure that the spur runs not on the inside edge or the outside edge of the pinion. You want it to run more or less in the middle of the pinion somewhere.
Yeah, roger that.
Slothead had a great question, and Dennis already answered it, but let's do it live.
Yeah, let's do that.
He said, my best car by far for home racing back in the 60s was a Cox 132nd Ford GT. Cost about $20, which was a ton of money for me at the time as a teen. Anyone know how a restored one compares to recent Fly and Scalextric type cars? Dennis, do you want to answer that?
It's, you know, it's difficult, not really apples to apples, because there's very different motors and things like that. They have a lot more, if the motors are still running in the old cars, they have a lot more power and quite a bit more speed. And you obviously have to change tires because the old stuff just doesn't, you know, they're all 50 years old now and they're hard and whatever. But my Cox and Monogram cars that I have that have urethanes on the back, mostly Ortmans, but some Paul Gage and a couple of others, they run wonderfully on my wood track. They're really nice. They're great fun to run. But, you know, if I was running against Scalextric and Fly, I could probably hold my own. If I was running against NSR or Slotted, I would be in trouble. But, you know, what I like to do is I have 3 or 4 of them and we run them together. You know, have 3 old Monogram Series 1 cars like a 904 and a Cooper Ford and a 275 LM Ferrari, and run the 3 together and have great fun. Or a Cox Cheetah and a Cox Ford GT, and then maybe a Monogram Ford GT next to it, or a Lola T70 or something like that. They're great fun.
Good stuff.
And that's, you know, and then from there, it depends what you want to do to them. You know, it's very easy to take out the rear Nylotron bushings that they have and replace those with sintered bronze bushings. You can freeze the drop arm. You can do all kinds of stuff, and you can make them go as fast as you want them to go.
Hang a brass pan underneath them too.
Yeah.
But you also have to have a power supply that'll, I guess, meet the amperage requirements of the older motors as well, right?
Yeah, but you know, I think that you'd probably fine on a less than 5 amp power supply for 2 cars.
And if you're running on a wood track already, you're probably not running a Scalextric wall wart. You're probably running something.
Yeah.
That's a good point, though. The older motors did have different.
Yeah, they did draw more power. Yeah, and they were designed to run on 12 volts, right?
I mean, it's amazing with today's stuff. I mean, back then we used to true tires, by chucking the wheel on an axle and putting it on an electric drill and holding a nail file, because that's all we could do, And sometimes we glued the tires on, sometimes we didn't glue the tires on. You put a set of really nice round tires on one of these cars and do a few things to them, and they run unbelievably sweetly.
I would agree with that.
Well, plus they also had real aluminum wheels that were round.
And had spokes.
Yeah, the real aluminum wheels were round. The threaded axles were another matter.
Right.
On a similar topic, when you guys are showing off, or Dennis, when you're showing off that Eurosport chassis, I was reminded of a recent post that I saw, probably in the same Facebook group, and I'm not even going to bother looking for it. But it was a company advertising a 3D printed pan. It wasn't the whole chassis wasn't 3D printed. Can you remind me? Describe better what I'm talking about.
Okay, so what the guy's done, there's a class of racing out there that is usually called LMP or GTP or things like that, and they use stamped steel chassis produced in China or wherever by 2 major manufacturers, JK Products and Mazzetti Racing, right? And there are a couple of other versions, but at the moment, those are the 2 that virtually everybody uses. They carry any number of different motors and different body styles and so on, but it's effectively just a stamped steel chassis that's 2 parts. There's a center section that carries the rear axle and gears and motor, and then it stretches forward to carry the guide, and it has little wings out the front. And none of those cars run with front wheels, although they can. Nobody ever does. And then the second part of the chassis holds the body, and the bodies are clipped or pinned onto the sides of that second piece, which is called the pan. And the 2 pieces move a little bit independently. They rattle, and there are little clips and other things that hold the whole thing together. Okay. As you change from one track to another, you very often want to swap out the pan, because that's the quickest way to change the weight of the car. And when you get onto bank tracks like the King tracks and some others, you want the lightest one possible. And the manufacturers so far have always made a number of different steel pans, and then usually 1 or 2 aluminum pans. Yeah, Mike's got one there. That was a Mazzetti Striker. No, Defender. It's a Mazzetti Defender. So
yeah,
what he's showing there.
This is the JK.
And that's the JK Aeolus. Yeah. Okay. So that's what they look like. Now, that outside pan is usually steel on a flat track. On a King track, they very often, or other bank tracks, they often use aluminum ones. The problem with aluminum ones is that they bend very easily in a crash. And so what this guy had done is he'd made a pan that is 3D printed that fits exactly where the regular pan fits, that's lighter than the aluminum one, but stronger and doesn't bend.
Or it flexes, but it doesn't retain a bend like aluminum.
Correct. Right. Yeah. It would flex under in a crash, but effectively it stays straight. And they look pretty good. Now, I'm sure that in local racing, various places. They'll be allowed. I can't see that at a national level or an international level that they would be allowed straight away without quite a lot of work being done with the organizing organizations, the controlling organizations, because those classes are always very strictly controlled in terms of what you can do and what you can't do to the chassis. I mean, I've seen guys disqualified at a world championship for using a Dremel tool to take a burr out of a hole in one of those chassis. It's called a production class. You have to use a production chassis, right? And even though the production process introduced some burrs in places where they didn't want them, you weren't allowed to take them out. But yeah, so that's what it was, John, Greg, and the guy, it looked like the guy done a really nice job, and it seems like he's tested a number of different materials as well.
The picture that I saw looked very much like sintered nylon, like Shapeways prints, and so that should be very resilient. It looked like the design was such that it was very light but structurally stiff.
Yeah, he had a number of little ribs and things in the right places. It looked like. Yeah, I thought it was a nice job, and he has two: one that fits the JK chassis, one that fits the Mazzetti chassis.
That's what I was just going to say. So he's not marketing the whole chassis; he's marketing that printed.
Just that pan,
yeah.
Swap into your other chassis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When you need it, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I thought that looked pretty.
Yeah, they were there. It was very nice. A friend of mine got me on the phone then one day and said, "Oh, I've just seen a carbon fiber pan." And I'm thinking to myself, I don't think so. And I went and looked at the picture and I thought, just because it's black doesn't mean it's carbon fiber, guys.
You should just get an aluminum pan and put some of that carbon fiber sticky stuff on.
Yeah, a skin on it, yeah. Talking of which, there are skins. I mean, you can actually buy graphic printed skins for those chassis. Some guys just like to doll them up a little. And so there are pre-printed skins with all kinds of weird graphics in exactly the right shape that you could stick on the bottom of those chassis to make them look different.
Yeah. Oh, what the hell?
Is that to identify your car when it flies off the track?
I guess, I wouldn't do it because it just it means that you got to ride the car just those couple of thousands higher,
Right.
And I wouldn't try to that. Yeah. Plus, at the front of those cars, I mean, and where Mike was showing you those little ears or the little wings right up at the front. If you've got your car properly set, when you take it off after a 3-minute heat on a glued up track, the whole front edge of the chassis has pickup on it of rubber and glue. That's how low you run those cars. Yeah. You're actually running the car. If it's not touching, it's only a couple of thousandths off the track at any point in time at the front of the chassis. Yeah. You always deburr that front edge and round it off so there's no sharp edge there to damage the track. But you can physically hear them rattle on the track.
Yeah. We used to, again, Dennis was talking about rules and what you can and can't do. When we had more leeway, we used to drill a tiny little hole in the corners of the front of those ears and solder in a very, very tiny ball bearing just with the bottom third, not even of the ball bearing protruding below the bottom of the chassis. So you wouldn't have the whole front ears picking up crap. It would just run on the ball bearing, which would reduce friction and stuff. But
so the ball bearing actually rotated, Chris?
No. Just the bearing, the ball out of a ball bearing. I mean,
right. So just so it was round enough that it didn't have.
Yeah, we used to break open old bearings and pull out the little balls, right?
Yeah.
So they're like 1.2 millimeter ball, and then you drill these tiny little holes in the front, and you pop it in there, and then solder it in with the right clearance that you want.
So the car literally took balls. Wow.
The car literally rested on those balls. Yeah.
Yeah. When going around the corner and compressing, right? So
I've seen other guys do it instead of using a ball bearing to use a little piece of very thin brass shim and solder the brass shim on the front.
Yeah.
But wouldn't the brass shim scrape too?
Yeah, that's the idea.
Oh, it scrapes, but you just want less scraping. So
it's soft. The brass is softer
Smaller
than
area.
steel, and
Yeah.
you can polish it nicely and get it nice and round. The edges. I've seen guys wrap body armor over the front as well. So thin Lexan with double-sided adhesive underneath it, and then you wrap it from the top over the front and back, and you make that like a little pad on those corners. But everything that you do like that is raising the front of the car.
right.
Whereas if you do it the way that I do it, and you just let the whole thing settle, you get the whole front of the car just that little bit lower. And again, in some of the rules, you're not allowed to make those modifications that Chris was talking about. So that's what you want to do. It's crazy to watch the guys at World Championship level prepare those cars. They'll spend 3 hours or more taking one of those chassis just to get them flat. They will pound and bend and hit and twist and pound it some more and bend it some more, and literally they'll take 2 to 3 hours to get those things straight, square, and flat.
Yeah.
And it lasts one race.
Yeah.
Well, it depends what you hit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, when I race, it does.
When Dennis was referring to Mazzetti chassis, that's Ernie Mazzetti, who I was at that's his track, and he has boxes and boxes and boxes of center sections and aluminum pans and steel pans and design pans. And we go up there and with flat blocks, pick some of the better ones. And some of the less better ones get put in plastic bags with a header card and get sent off. I mean, they're all pretty good, but there's no question that some of them are better than others. And Dennis is right. It's the flattening process and hammering it and tweaking it and pliering it. And a lot of work.
So basically, you guys are like blueprinting the chassis.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Blueprinting.
Yeah.
Yeah, you make sure at the back where the axle carrier uprights are folded up. Very first thing you do is you spend time making sure they're absolutely vertical. Then you make sure that the holes where you used to make sure that the holes where the oil lights or the bearings would fit are exactly the right height. Nowadays, what you get is a special oil light or a special bushing that has a much smaller size. It has a big flange on it and a smaller size, so that it actually is floppy in the hole. So you set it up with a jig axle and jig wheels, and then you solder them in position to get them absolutely straight and true and completely horizontal and just at the right height.
And so
Well, this
what
is-
you were, oh, sorry, I was
this
just
is-
say, so, oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
This is sort of the silly bugger in chassis, because as Dennis was talking about dimples, you also can't enlarge the holes that the bushings go into. However, you can make a bushing with a reduced size flange. So you put it in and adjust it with setup blocks and make sure it's perfectly level left to right and perfectly parallel to the front axle. And then you solder the bushings in. So we have not touched the holes in the chassis, but there's a way around that. So
It's fascinating that finishing off the front of the chassis so it's smooth enough to scrape is better than actually having wheels on it.
Yeah, because the wheels add a lot of weight, and they add an axle that's 3/8 of an inch above the track, and for whatever reason, we've all found out that you actually want the front of the chassis to touch the track, so that it stabilizes the front and allows the back to twist, but also the friction on that outside point as you're going around the turn, the friction on that outside point helps to stop the tail stop the chassis rotating quicker, right? So it tends to stop the car from sliding a lot as it goes into the turn. So all of those things are what's happened. But yeah, it's just the way that slot car racing has evolved. The early days of wing cars, they all had front wheels, and then they started to realize that if they allowed the front wheels to move up and down, they got through the bumps on the track, and they got through the glue zones a lot better. And so eventually they were just these tiny little wheels at the front, and then eventually they threw the front wheels away. And on Eurosport cars and on these flexi cars that we're talking about now, the stamped steel ones, nobody uses front wheels, but we put stickers on the outside of the body so that at least the car looks like it's got wheels at the front. You know,
slot car.
It's a slot car, right? It's not a model car.
No,
They're
it's
not
a
intended to
bicycle.
be model cars,
It's not a
right?
scale, it's not a scale representation. It's
a slot car. It's a machine used for racing against other similar machines
in a slot
on tracks that were designed when we were all 18 years old instead of 70 years old, and where we can't bend anymore. I keep saying that to people. I wish that they would lift the tracks up a little bit now. You know, the tracks are all like 12 inches above the floor, and you've got to be down on your knees to turn, Marshall. It would be so much better if the track was at table height, right? Where you could stand. Like
So what you're saying is that the chassis have more flexibility than the drivers.
Oh yeah, by a long way.
absolutely.
By a long way.
It's probably worth mentioning before everybody here on their plastic tracks and 30-second scale hard tired cars decides they have to go home and take all the front wheels off their cars. Don't do that. A lack of front wheels on a wood track with sponge tires sets up a set of certain chassis dynamics that allows you to do that. If you're running a 30-second scale with hard tires, rubber, silicone, urethane, it is far more advantageous to have the front wheels touching the track to act as outriggers.
And the same applies even with sponge tires and wood tracks when you're running the brass and piano wire retro cars that we run. Those things don't run very well without front tires either. And a lot of the scale stuff that the Germans run, that super scale stuff, that doesn't run very nice without front tires either. But there, the reason for the front wheels is more to lower the rolling resistance than anything else, because the cars have a lot less horsepower.
And on that PSA, I want to welcome Dewan. I put him on the spot. He messaged me, and I said, join the chat. And he was stupid enough to join the chat. So now he's going to be forced to ask his question and talk about himself. Dewan, you want to check your mic and see if you can tell us a little bit about Dewan's slot racing history? You're currently muted. Let me see if I can help you with that. We can't hear you talking because you're still muted. There you go.
There we go. Okay, yes. I'm not used to doing Zoom on my phone. I was just sitting out here on the patio by the pool and decided to just ask a question. But yeah, I'm honored, absolutely honored to be amongst these high-end gurus you guys are. I've been watching about 20 or so of your episodes so far.
Never mind. We're happy to be by the pool. Thanks for having us by your pool.
It's 107 degrees out here in Las Vegas, Nevada. So yes.
No to this.
This is the only place to be right now. Yeah. But anyhow, oh gosh, and wouldn't it be great? Someone's trying to call in to me. I'm gonna ignore that. Can you guys still see me? I have a call coming in.
We can still hear you. Go ahead and keep going.
Okay. No, that's okay. Anyway, but I'll call them back in a moment. Well, yeah, I just had because I was sitting here chilling, I figured I'd ask you the question.
Tell us a little bit before you get to the question. Tell us about Dewan's history with slot cars from when he was a kid to when he was an adult. If any of that happened as a kid, just tell us.
At age 9, I got an Eldon slot car set. and my neighbor across the street had a Revell, and I was very jealous. So by the age 10 for Christmas, I got a beautiful Revell set. That was 1968. And
You're just gonna keep trying. It must be important.
okay, yeah, it's I have an Airbnb and it's my house manager, but I was like, I'll call her right back. Okay. So yeah, me and my neighbor, we combined sets and we made a little 4-laner in my garage and things like that. And we did it for a few years, and then obviously, like everyone else and their stories, the hobby kind of slightly died. It was slowly dying a little bit, and we got out of it for our own purposes of age and growing up and girls, etc. But I always had my slot car track. I kept it, and I tried to keep it in a nice condition and everything. Never looked at it back since I was 12, 14 years old or so, until I was moving and ran across it. And I saw it was rusted out and everything, and I was really disappointed. But I went and looked at eBay, and I bought me a 4-laner Americana set from someone on eBay, and I put that together along with some good pieces of mine. And then I start going through my little bucket list of things I wanted to do since I was at retirement age. And I wanted to always wanted to have this massive 4-laner. And my goal was to go ahead and acquire everything that I needed to get this 4-laner, and didn't figure out, and I got a layout book on figuring out how to do different 4-laners, etc. And then it just dawned on me that I really wanted to do the Batman configuration. And so
I was just gonna say, you probably you got Wayne Manor somewhere.
Yeah, I have a property here that I acquired, that I bought in Vegas. This 1.2 acres, and it's only 3,000 square foot property right now, but I'm going to be adding about 6,000 square feet to it.
Okay, so we're gonna come. We're coming right over.
When I finish it, it's not. This is, I'm talking about the project. Okay, it's not quite done yet. So yeah. It's gonna be my hobby room is included in part of my project, and I have the blueprints already made up and everything. Just the price of wood is just insane, and I'm trying to weight that down. But so it's going to include a massive 4-laner, and I'm going to completely duplicate the Batman track and have that sitting to the side. And hopefully I'll go to one of the newer tracks, the digital Carrera, most likely, because I was a 124 guy back in those days. I had 132s, just a few of them, but I probably had quite a few dozen 124s. I got a little bit into the wing cars, but didn't get too involved into it. But I still like the 124 scale. So I have my Revell track, and that's exactly what I'm doing. I have every single piece needed to do the Batman track. I just don't have the hobby room built up. So I have it all in storage. All the biggest thing was the aprons, trying to get the side aprons that they had in every single aspect of the track. So I'm hoping to have that and showcase and invite anybody and everyone who wants to come over and a slot car. That's what we'll do.
Still the best plastic track ever.
Absolutely. And I've learned to fabricate my own little pieces that might be missing if I need to. So it's worked out great, because getting some of the half curves and the half straights and things like that have been real hard to find. But I've learned to actually make those myself. So it's been good. I'm an engineer, by the way. I'm nicknamed the rocket scientist because I was an aerospace engineer for many years, and I also had my own IT firm that I co-founded. So,
well, I gotta ask you, is rocket science really rocket science?
You know what? I love when people say, "Oh, it's not rocket science." Well, if it is, I can help you. That's my coin phrase. Yeah. But yeah, I was a thermal system specialist over at Lockheed. I did work on the space shuttle, mini aircraft. So it's most of all the GPS satellites. I think I did 13 launches of GPS satellites. So I was really out there and really involved and enjoyed it. But now I'm retired and trying to have fun and go through all my bucket list items.
So you're going to animate all of your scenery, right?
Actually, yes. I'm really trying to really find a good theme of of Gotham City, and I want that to be my scenery. I mean, I'm gonna have the background is gonna be okay, but I want to try to get some iconic buildings and things like that that could depict Gothic City, because I really want to do it nice.
And of course, Batman and Robin climbing up the side of one of them.
Good for you.
Yeah. And, you know, I was in a fraternity, and we pledged as the International Warlord. So my character was Superman. My last name is Clark, so I was alias Clark Superman. But one of my line brothers was Batman. He was a gun-ho, diehard Batman guy from childhood and he's a couple years older than me. And so, and then we have Captain America and Aquaman. Those are the four of us that still survive. And so I have all four of those cars ready, Lexan bodies of each one of those cars, and some of them just, fantasy liveries, whatever you want to call it. But so we're planning on having that race on the Batman track. So
cool.
Thank you very much for joining us, Dewan, and thank you for telling us your slot history. Now, you messaged me with a question. Do you want to repeat that question?
Yeah. Over Memorial Day weekend, I was, I had my son come by. He just recently got married, and he brought his wife by, and I bought her. When they came, they found, a package, 2 packages, and they were 2 Carrera 124 slot cars. And so I put those on my track. I have a variable voltage power supply. I have power taps throughout I have my test layout in place right now. It's a 4-laner, but it just takes up my entire living room. But it's just my test track until I get the Batman track up. And we were doing a 30-lap race with the track mate and everything. And halfway through the race, one of the cars just stopped. And I looked it over, tried to do everything, and nothing fell out. That's why it just stopped. And this is the cars are in analog mode, just running on a straight analog track. And so then that person just dropped out of the race. My daughter, she said, I'll just drop out. And then 2 laps later, another car stopped. And then 3 laps later, another car stopped. So it was only down to 1 car. And it puzzled me because I couldn't figure out, clearly I could put the 1 car that's working, I could put on any of the 4 tracks. So it was clearly car related, not the track or system related at all. And so, but the next day we came back and all 4 cars were working. So obviously it's something that triggered like a circuit breaker type of thing inside the cars that caused the cars to just stop. And I saw your comment. You thought it might have been a digital chip that could have done that.
Yeah.
Is that still enabled in analog mode, or would that be?
Even though you're running in analog mode, it's still going into and out of the chip. The chip has been you've pulled the trigger 3 times and it says, okay, I'm on an analog track, and it responds to the incoming voltage by just outputting that voltage, but it's still having to go through the components of the chip. Now, I'm glad Don is on here, because Don, I see your track is a nice big Carrera digital track. Do you run 124s on that track? You're muted.
No, I don't run 124s. Mine are all 132nd.
Okay. Have you ever had a car just kind of stop because you've been racing it too long?
No.
I mean, that's the only thing that came to mind, especially because they worked fine the next day.
Yeah.
That's basically because what I believe is most likely happening is the output MOSFETs that are actually providing the DC voltage to the motor.
Mm-hmm, to the motor, yeah.
Because I'm assuming that you're running it on your Eldon track, so that's got steel.
Well, no, it's a Revell track. It's a Revell track.
But it's got steel rails, right?
Steel rails, yes.
So the Carrera cars had their magnets in them.
Here you are.
Yes.
And so you were also running it at 15 volts or something less than
15.6 was the max on my variable voltage power supply. Yeah.
So the 124 cars, the motors in them are rated at 18 volts.
18. Yes.
So at a lower voltage, the motor
is going to have more amps.
It's going to pull more amps. The on a steel rail as opposed to the stainless steel rail of Carrera track, the magnets are going to have much more drag. And so you're basically trying to pull around more weight than the cars were designed to at a lower voltage than they were designed to run on. And those MOSFETs.
Right.
And then they said, nope, not working anymore. The plus is that you didn't overheat them so much that they desoldered themselves right off the board, because that can happen too. And then they cooled down and they were fine the next day. So what I would say is, if you want to keep running those cars on that track, pull out a magnet. Pull out the rear magnet, leave the middle magnet in. I believe the 124 cars mostly have two magnets, one in the back, one in the rear. It can be a pain in the butt to because you got to take the whole shell off and take stuff.
Yeah, that's not a big deal.
If you just leave the one center magnet in, it'll probably be much better and not overheat as easily. And then maybe if you can get a new power supply eventually, but I think just pulling the magnet will do the trick. It'll be harder to drive, but you can turn your voltage down too.
Greg, is it possible he could just bypass the chip while he's just running on the analog?
Very good point. Thank you very much, Brian. With Carrera Digital, they conveniently use plugs for the chip. So you can unplug the input to the chip and unplug the output to the motor and stick them directly together, so the chip is not even in play. Thank you, Brian. That just
That's probably the best way. Yeah.
That's
I
absolutely.
wasn't sure because I don't have any Carrera Digital, but I know the reversing switch chip and all that, they use the plug. So that's why.
Thank you very much, Brian. No, that's fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. And because the way that the Carrera Digital chips work in analog mode, it's always full strength braking. You have no real control over the brake strength. So by bypassing the chip, whatever controllers you're using, if you've got adjustable brakes and stuff like that, they'll actually work properly.
Wow. Okay.
The only issue you might have is that the car might run backwards because of the fact that the Carrera Digital stuff has the positive on the left side. So you might have to reverse something in those plugs.
Well, I have a reversing switch, lane reversing switches on the track as well.
Okay.
I have driver stations, lane reversing switches.
Perfect.
So
And that's also a good point, Dennis. And I'm thinking back, I've bypassed the chip on several Carrera cars, and they always went the correct direction, which is very interesting. Because you're right, Carrera Digital does work with opposite polarity as normal analog tracks do.
Well, maybe Carrera even more rocket scientist than I thought they were. Duan's the rocket scientist. He's not going to have a problem with any of this stuff.
Cool. Just bypass the chip entirely.
Bypass the chip. That's the best way.
Okay, I think
you're never planning to use digital, there are digital out there that will pay you for those chips.
Well, I'm planning on having, after my Batman track is done and get over that fantasy, then I'm planning on having a up-to-date digital track and have something like that going as well. So I want to have both going.
Cool.
I'm also building a 4-lane bowling center on the property as well. So I'm hoping to have some space for that.
All right, so you're gonna be renting rooms, right? Because I'm
actually I am. I'm gonna have a Airbnb customized just for the people that are coming by to do because the bowling center is gonna be a training center. I'm the president, or actually now I'm gonna be the past president of the National Bowling Association.
Oh, yeah.
So I've been involved in bowling my whole life as well. So, but that's where that comes from. So that's why I got the big property, so I can put the lanes in and then add all the other stuff that I really want.
Wow.
You have the two most popular hobbies in the 1960s on your property.
Yes, it was.
Now the only thing you need now is a pub.
Oh, what? A pub?
You're gonna have one of those, aren't you, Juan? You're gonna have a nice big bar in one of those rooms, aren't you?
No, it's BYOB.
Now I gotta ask Dewan, how many of your wing cars were powered by a Globe motor?
Globe? I was using Parma and Mura motors. Yeah, back in those days. Yeah, and those were just extremely expensive. I can't even remember I want to say they were $100 back in the early 1970s.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, but and I haven't seen any of those. I know they discontinued and out of business and everything, but I've never even seen aftermarket Mura motor. It's
you can still find Mura stuff on eBay now.
Okay. But I'm sure everything else has surpassed them as far as the performance and technology and stuff. So yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff coming out of Eastern Europe these days, but there's a lot of good stuff coming out of the US still. ProSlot, for example, are making a lot of good motors still.
Or you gotta find someone like Dennis or Chris who have 600 of them in a bag in their basement.
Well, I'm from LA and I still have my home in LA, and I want to definitely go to Electric Dreams. I was planning on making a visit down there. I'm definitely going to go to the museum. But yeah, so I still have one of my homes down in LA.
Yes.
And that's what yeah.
Okay, two things to remember, Dewan. One, the Electric Dreams and the museum are not in the same property. They're two separate places, right?
Yes.
That's the first thing to remember. The second thing, if you want to visit the Electric Dreams, come on a Thursday when I'm there.
Yes.
Because I'd like to meet you. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, they actually told me that the guy you want to talk to is only here once a week rather. So, because I was asking them all kind of questions that was a little bit they didn't really feel comfortable answering. So yes. Yeah, I'd be honored to meet these superstars in person.
No
That'd be great.
superstars here, buddy. No superstars.
No. Oh, don't play it down. You really are.
You're a YouTube star, Dennis, with those Electric Dreams videos, reviewing stuff. And
yes.
Yeah, I got a couple more of those coming up, actually, and we just haven't done them yet. We were going to do one last week, but Marco, the manager at Electric Dreams, he managed to swing himself a photographer's pass for Indy 500, so he disappeared at the last minute. But the next one that's coming up, and it's probably of some interest to all of us, Electric Dreams is now the local, like a distributor for Oliver, the guy in Portugal who designs all the 3D printed chassis that are replacements for Fly and Scalextric and on and on and on. And so the next video is going to feature a Fly Ferrari 250 GTO, where I took out the regular front motored chassis and put in an Oliver chassis, and it all fits very, very nicely, and we'll run it around the track, and we'll make a bit of a decent video of that coming up. So we've got quite a lot of that stuff now, along with the Area 71 3D printed bodies. We also have some stocks of those now too.
And another small point for you, John. I think there was never a Globe motor in a wing car. Globe motors were gone 25 years before wing cars were even thought of.
Yeah, but the reason I asked was because they came from the aerospace industry, did they not?
Oh,
yep.
Yep.
Yep. Great motors.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Great
and not only that, great ads in the old model car magazines and stuff.
Yeah, great motors. Less than £1.50 pounds each.
What?
Weren't they
and the
also,
£1.50 is the weight, not the cost, right?
Yeah.
well, I was going to say, weren't they also known to bend light? I don't know.
I want to see the rocket powered slot car.
Little test.
We've done that. We used to,
you muted.
we used to do that with those little Jetex engines that we used to get from the UK way back. That it was a little shell that you put these little pellets in with a fuse, lit the fuse, and it shot all this gas out the back. And that was great to bolt one of those on, because they were quite small. Bolt one of those onto a slot car, but you've got to aim it well. Your angle of pressure has got to be good to actually provide a little bit of downforce, because if it's level or just the wrong way, that thing just takes off. But yeah,
it would have been really, Dennis, it would have been really cool if you put one of those in a Batmobile.
There you go. Well, I'm all out of topics. Does anybody else have anything they want to ask about, show about, tell about, circle back on? Okay, we'll go ahead and stop.
I have a question.
Do we have any? We don't have any HO scale races on today, do we? No. Wayne or anybody from the UK.
So did you finish that car, Dennis?
Oh, I got a couple more going, but I actually have been building the chassis. I haven't painted the bodies yet.
We'll definitely look forward to that. What did you raise your hand for, Don? You're muted still.
I said I used to race HO.
Not so much anymore.
Well, I race it as much as I do any of my cars by myself, but.
Oh, Dennis, what you gonna show? You're muted again, Dennis. I didn't mean to screen share, sorry.
Wow.
It happens. You know, we're just a bunch of old guys playing with computers.
At least he was on a proper site.
Yeah. Safe search.
Actually, I was on the National Bowling Association site.
Oh, he was looking up Dewan.
Checking out Dewan and finding out. And that's where I noticed that he was shown as from LA, and I thought, well, that's cool.
Yes.
You didn't think you
Yes.
background?
He's in Vegas now. Yeah.
Well, I have to, you know what? I should put a disclaimer out there. I'm going to claim Los Angeles as my home. I have to spend 51% of my time there to legally do Airbnb out of the home there. So I am there 51% of the time, no matter what anybody says.
No, okay. Here's the car that I finished yesterday. Another little HO scale thing with the even tinier motor this time. A 10 ohm resistor in line so that it reduces the performance of the motor. Believe it or not, that they're apparently undrivable without reducing the motor. These are the little motors that they run the tail rotors of radio controlled helicopters and other such things with. And that's what it looks like from underneath. And then I took a photo just to give a little bit of an idea of just how freaking small these things are. At the 1/24th on the left, 1/32nd in the middle, and HO scale on the right.
Now, Dennis, I noticed on the top view, if you could go back of the HO chassis, is that wire you looped around the front axle holder?
Yes. Yeah. Just to around here. Yeah. Just to reinforce the joint, because the wheels rotate independently on the axle, and there's just one there, so it's not a very strong joint. So I did some wire wrapping around them.
And is that just steel wire, or?
Yeah, it's steel wire that I get from the hardware store, and I'm just stretching to get it. It's a 32 gauge galvanized steel wire. You find it in the picture framing and hanging areas of the hardware store.
So do you actually unwrap the picture wire frame or a wire and?
No, it's just plain steel wire.
Oh, look at that. Okay.
Just plain galvanized steel wire. And as I say, it's 32 gauge, so it's 0.3 millimeter. And one spool of that lasts you a long time.
Now, do you do that for your 32nd and 24th scale chassis as well, or just?
Yeah, I do mostly. I don't know that the ones that I showed there actually had it on them.
Oh, there it is on the 32nd. I see it. Yeah.
And on the 24th, you can see it there.
It is. Okay.
Wrapped around, and then I wrap it around a couple of times, and then twist the ends together and clip them off, and then fill that with solder. Just flood it with flux, and then hold the soldering iron up there with a little bit of solder, and just to get it into to fill into all the little gaps.
Got it. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, so that's what I've been doing. I actually had to make a building jig so that I could build HO scale cars. So I used a piece of corian and put it in my milling machine and worked out the coordinates of where I needed to drill some holes, and made myself a little building jig.
You know how last week we were talking about 1/32 scale go-karts? Those would be perfect for them.
Yeah, these are even smaller than the go-karts will be, I'm sure.
Is it really smaller? Holy crow.
Well, it's a 1.5-inch wheelbase,
Yeah.
and an 1.25 inches wide.
They're, oh my goodness. So
yeah, they're tiny.
They're tiny, tiny.
Yeah, the challenge is not, can there be a chassis? Obviously, Dennis can handle the chassis for those 1/32 scale carts. Now, John, the challenge is going to be for you to make a proper driver for those carts.
Yeah.
Where are you at on that?
Challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted. There we go. Now we just need Steve to send us one of those go-karts.
Yeah, I went online to try and
motorize it.
find them. I wanted to buy a few, but I can't, you know, maybe I just don't know how to Google, but I couldn't find any.
Okay.
Uh,
I look forward to seeing that functioning 1/32 scale.
Yeah, I'll do open face and closed face.
We'll
helmet.
call it the Zoom Chat Challenge.
That's a great idea.
The Zoom Chat Challenge.
All right, I'll hire you to do my chassis, Dennis, and I'll.
Yeah. That's the way we should do it. Somebody sends in a really crazy body, then get John to make a really crazy driver, and I'll make a really crazy chassis, and then we'll send it to Chris so he can put it all together and paint the body. And then,
Actually, you know what? My daughter could probably sculpt everybody's head. She's done that for some of her customers.
Good. I'm ready for my.
Seriously, yeah. Well, as you can see, she's better at most things than I am, right? I mean, you know.
Oh, well, you made it, John, so you've got to at least take credit for that.
Take a little bit.
Half credit.
Oh, all right. Okay. Yeah, your wife reminds you of that every day, right?
Oh, even there, man. I can't get over that 8-ball. There's no way. That 8-ball's the size of a freaking beach ball for me.
Yeah.
Oh, anybody else got anything else, or?
Yeah, I got a question if you got the time.
Brian?
Chris might be the best one to direct this to. I was looking at, well, and you'll see why here in a second. I was looking to add a McLaren to my stable, and I was on the Professor Motor site, and I wanted to give an MR slot a try. They have several liveries of the McLaren F1 on there, and they range in price from about $59 to $72. And I was just curious, is there any significant difference in the chassis or the setups on these? Or is it strictly, you know, something he had older stock that is cheaper? Or...
Yeah. Zero difference. Livery, and that's it.
Because he had more solid color. I think he had one in a Harrods livery. Livery. He had a few. So I was just
some of them came with a scale auto motor.
There is a difference from the early models to the later ones. The ones that were solid colors.
Hold on, too many people talking at once. Let's let Chris answer that question.
No, go ahead.
So that we have that full answer. I believe the answer was the only difference between those cars was livery. Is that correct, Chris?
There were some minor difference in the 6 Series set cars, which were solid colors. Nothing to be really worried about. Any liveried car, whether it's Herod or Fina or whatever, they're all identical.
Yeah, he's got a Herod, a Fina, and let's see, I got the site open here, and a Golf.
Yep, all identical.
Yeah, so there's $60, but his newest one, like the Gicardi livery, is $72.
Well, yes, that's exchange rates, China rates, pricing discrepancies. In terms of, if you really have to have the $72 livery, go for it. You're not getting any big bump in performance.
No, I would actually be going the other way. It's like $72. You know, the solid body ones, the ones he has in stock, the yellow one's $55.
Yep.
The FINA livery 60, the Harrods livery 60. And the only one I think he's got that's even maybe a little cheaper was the all black one, but I don't know if that was on this site or not. The
My favorite livery is the FINA and the Marlboro livery, but that's
But Chris,
whatever.
Chris,
Yeah, that's just me.
Dennis,
Chris. From the Marlboro livery onwards, the McLaren F1 GTRs have the slotted Flat 6 motor.
Yeah.
And before that, they had the Scale Auto long can motor. So there is a difference.
Yeah, but the ones he mentioned are all old liveries.
Yeah, all right. All the old liveries are identical. Agreed.
Right. Yeah.
But from the Marlboro onwards, they are different because they have a different motor and therefore a different pod.
Yeah.
Okay. And is that John Underwood? You were saying something. Is that what you were saying?
Exactly what Dennis said. I've got a plain yellow one with a slotted boxer, as Dennis said, and then Wankel's got a couple, and the first one had I think the same, the boxer, and then the second one came with a flat 6. So I said, if you can, run it, do run it, so comparable time. So, but yeah, as I say, lovely cars. I've got he's bringing out the XJ 220, which looks quite nice. Fantasy liveries aren't everyone's cup of tea, but I think the Silk Cut and the Castrol, they're lovely looking cars. We never raced in it, but he's doing the proper one. But yeah, as I say, I've got what's this group? The Mazda 787. That's a nice car. But yeah, just a slot car, great cars, go for it.
So it sounds like, Brian, you just take your pick and you're good to go.
Yep, sounds like I'm going the cheap route.
Yeah, regardless, they're all very nice cars. They, as John said, they work really well.
Yeah. And you run with magnets, so they'll be you'll love them.
I'm just so glad we're documenting this oral history of slot cars.
Yeah, absolutely. This will be valuable. This will be invaluable in 150, 200 years.
Yep.
We'll be digging
someone's going to get their PhD with this stuff. You wait.
Yeah, and
the problem is 150 years from now, somebody's going to say, "What the hell is Marlboro?"
Right.
No, they'll know. It'll be like that stain on the human history of putting carcinogens into your lungs on purpose.
And John, if you have a Mr. Slot car with a slotted boxer motor, someone likely changed that motor out.
Yeah, that's interesting.
No, I've tried it. It's okay.
No. I was just saying, if it has a slotted boxer motor in it, someone has changed that motor.
Because they were Scale Auto boxers.
They were Scale Autos. They were Scale Auto Sprinters.
Yes. Sorry. Yes, you're correct. It was a Scale Auto.
Okay, no problem then.
Yeah. No. Good cars. We tend to run them at Oxford in classes. So unfortunately, it's comparable with an LMP car to me. The GT sort of spec. But we don't mix. We tend to stick to one class.
Yep.
Every club does it different.
Well, there's a few new cars coming, but there's the XJ 220, which I've seen. Saw a dozen of them over the last couple of months at the shop. There's the Ferrari 333 SP. Neither car, quite frankly, I'm all that excited about. There's another one that I'm very excited about that I can't tell you anything about. So.
Well, sure. What did you want to ask, Neil?
I just want to know if anybody had a suggestion on a power supply, aftermarket power supply for my Carrera track.
I mean, what are you running on it?
Just the what came with it.
No.
Yeah, actually,
the power
Neil,
pack.
Yeah, Neil. What I did, and this was actually recommended to us by Chris, is a pyramid supply. The pyramid with the variable voltage. and variable amperage.
Yeah, PS 26KX or something.
Correct.
Yeah.
PS26KS.
That's the one that I have for this contraption behind me.
Works.
Fantastic
Works
power supply. 10. How low does it go? 5?
great.
It goes up to 14.8, so 15-ish. But it's got plenty of amps. I've never, I ran a wing car on here. Obviously, it wasn't going full speed for a wing car, but it pushed it around the track, so it had enough amps to get that old thing going around. So I would expect that would serve you well. There's plenty of power supplies out there, but Pyramid, well-known brand, very sturdy, good quality.
Where do I get it? From Pyramid Supply?
I would Google it. Google it, or
Just Google it? Okay.
yeah, or go on Amazon or eBay.
And the great thing is you can run modern cars and vintage cars, and it's great.
Plenty of power. I mean, that's the main thing that you'll like. My kids had Carrera Go, and we got some SEX compact cars that ran just fine on the Carrera Go track. And then we picked up some Arton cars that did not. And this was before I knew very much about how slot cars actually work. And I'm like, I could not figure out why they wouldn't go. And it was because the Artons just were so stuck down, and whatever motor they had just needed higher amperage. And as soon as they had what they needed, they went just fine. So that Pyramid will get you enough amperage to put pretty much anything you want to on that track, and you'll be fine.
Makes a huge, good power supply and good controllers change the hobby for most people.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And being able to reduce the power to make things easier to drive for newbies and kids, having a controller with sensitivity and brake adjustments.
The two biggest advancements in slot car racing over the last few years really are not track, not cars, good controllers and good power supplies. They really, really have gone a long way to making the hobby a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah, that's the next thing after power supplies. I need to get a controller. I only have the the thumb thing from Carrera.
Yeah.
And I hate them because
and you're running what mainly you're on a Carrera track.
Yes.
And you're running mainly analog or analog and digital?
I run both.
Okay. Well, in which case, I know a lot about analog controllers, but Greg and the other guys are probably, better versed on a wide variety of suitable stuff for digital as well. But a good controller makes a massive amount of it. Same with power supply. It changes the whole thing.
I mean,
I definitely. I grew up with a trigger because I had HO.
Yeah.
And I'm just so used to that getting used to the thumb is just not working for me. So yeah, it'll be one of the upgrades.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you use so if you have Carrera digital and you have Carrera analog, do you swap out the bases, or do you have a tech slot space, or?
I have a tech slot base.
Okay. So you can spend some really good money for you to spend is going to be on a Digital Racing Solutions D132 controller. Digital Racing Solutions, pretty sure it's digitalracingsolutions.com, but it's basically a nice, ergonomically comfortable trigger controller that plugs right into where your Carrera thumb plungers plug into. And since you're using a tech slots base, you basically you don't have to change controllers. You just flip a switch and you can put an analog car on the track, right?
Right.
Yeah. So you just need that one controller. And I think, I don't think they have sensitivity, but just having a good trigger controller made such a big difference for the Carrera Digital. I have one of their controllers. I am a happy customer of Digital Racing Solutions. I cannot recommend them more. So if you're looking at controllers, you don't have to get a slotted, you don't have to get a Franken slot, you don't have to get all these high-end controllers. Just get something that feels good in your hand, that you're used to the trigger controlling versus the thumb controlling is make a big difference. So get one. They can they're a garage shop, so they don't have huge production numbers. So if you have a chance to grab a Digital Racing Solutions controller, go ahead and grab one. You're probably going to want one for every person who races on that track.
Right now, just me. But
yeah.
do they work on digital though too?
Well, they're a digital controller.
Oh, okay. All right.
Specifically you're plugging it into the Carrera digital control unit. It's
Okay.
your analog happens to actually be digital.
Right.
You're not running through analog. You're basically chipping the lane. So a chip is powering the lane for the analog control. That's why I asked that. If you were running legit analog, not through the tech slots thing, then you'd have to get a different kind of controller to run the analog cars. But in your situation, Digital Racing Solutions controller, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
And
Sure.
Neil,
Yes.
if the pyramid doesn't suit you, have a look on Professor Motor's site. He has a very nice, I think it's a 15 amp variable power supply that goes 0 to 20 volts. So that's also a possibility. And there are a couple of others, but mostly any laboratory style variable power supply with at least 15 amps will probably do you fine. If you're running 124th Carreras, you might want to go up to have something that goes up to 20 volts. If you're running just 132nd, you don't need to go anywhere near that.
Yeah, I don't have any 124 scale. It's mostly 132nd scale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so then the 15 volts or 16 volts that a pyramid will give you, or 14.8, I think Greg said, that'll do fine. You're probably not going to run it that high in any case, most of the time.
Yeah,
isn't the Carrera the power bank that comes? Or was it HO scale? It was 18 volts.
HO is 18, but and the Carrera one and Carrera 124th is 18. Carrera 132nd, I think, is 14.8.
14.8.
And Scalex Digital is also around about there.
The base itself, through all the electronics, you're going to lose a volt or a volt and a half or so, but it's still more than enough to get it around. So if you think you might want to play with 124, because every time I hear anybody talking about they tried out 124 and they can't believe they haven't tried it sooner, kind of thing. If you're thinking about trying 124 and you still have not yet purchased a power supply, go ahead and get the Professor Motor one. I've heard a lot of Carrera Digital users really like that because, like Dennis said, it goes up to the voltage that D124 prefers, whereas that Pyramid, you're not going to get that. And so if you want those 124th scale Carrera cars to perform like they should, then you're going to need to either give them the voltage they need or replace the motors in them. And it soon becomes more expensive to replace motors in every single D124 car you get than whatever it might have cost extra to get that Professor Motor power supply for those extra volts. So something to think about, but you can't go wrong with a Pyramid or the Professor Motor.
Okay, cool. More power.
More power. Yeah, exactly. More power.
Yes.
If lots is good, then more is better, and too much is just about enough.
That's
Hey,
right.
while we're on the subject of controllers, can I get an opinion here? Scale Electrics, my first controllers I went to, I upgraded to were Parma 25 ohm basic controllers. Still have them, they work fine. I decided to give the Professor Motors a try, and it was recommended that I use the 35 ohm. For like the Scale Electrics and most of the Carreras, it's okay, but for some of the higher end cars, the Slottits, the NSRs, I would like a little more sensitivity down low. I can go back to the Parmas, but I also thought, would a 25 ohm Professor Motor, which I do like their controllers, be better, or would I be better off going with one of their low end digital controllers? Not digital racing, but the digital instead of the
electronic rather than resistive.
Yes.
I would go with the electronic. You can apply very small increments of sensitivity to a wide range of motors. So even if you have a 25 and a 45 and a 65, one electronic controller will cover all of those ranges.
Now, should I be assuming you're talking one with adjustable sensitivity on it then?
Yep.
Okay, see, I wasn't looking at spending that much. I was looking at their basic digital.
Even
Well-
with even without the sensitivity adjustment, if you use one that is transistorized rather than resistive, you're already better off because the controller is not load sensitive anymore.
Right.
And that's a resistive controller is load sensitive,
Yeah.
meaning that it requires it requires that you match the resistance in the controller to the current draw of the motor.
Right.
Whereas if you're using something that has a transistor in it, it's basically switching the voltage, and it's a lot less load sensitive. So even without that, you'll find that you're better off.
How much were the Brian, what were you paying for the Professor Motor resistor controllers, Brian?
I think I paid $40 for those when I bought them. They're number 2139s.
Okay.
And I'm looking at either a 2142, which is the 25 ohm, or their basic 2120, which is their basic transistorized one. And
Yeah,
they run
I mean,
$50.
to be honest with you, you can get into their variable sensitivity electronic controllers for not a whole bunch more than that. In the long run, I think you're going to be a lot happier with a controller that will work much better with a wide variety of motors. If you get a 25 and a 45, there's motors that like 35. So you're sort of stuck in the middle with those, where a variable sensitivity for another $20 a controller, I think in the long run, you're going to be way happier.
Yeah, and I it's hard from their website to tell which ones. I don't need the variable brakes because I have those built into my driver stations.
Right.
So I couldn't really find one on the site that had the variable adjustability on it without the variable brakes. Let's see.
I mean, it's worth it. It's just worth it. I've never heard anybody. I'm sure there's people out there who still prefer their specific ohm resistor controllers, but every time I ever hear anybody talking about them, it's like, I'm so glad I went to an adjustable controller.
Well, I can definitely see the advantage, but what I'm looking at here, the ones with adjustabilities on them are $140 a piece.
Yeah, but you don't have to buy 5 of them.
I don't need that. I'm perfectly content with the ones I can get by with what I have now, but it's.
So here's what you do. You buy one of those, and then you sell your resistor controllers to the guys who's still out there begging for resistor controllers.
Those will go on the drag strip when I build it.
That's a 0 ohm controller, right?
It's up to you, Brian, but I really believe in the long run you're gonna be further ahead, dropping a few extra bucks. I really do.
Okay, yeah, I'll just have to find the model that'll work for me. And actually, my drag strip you're going to have to shift when I build it. I don't know if any of you guys remember. My dad brought one home when I was a kid. There was a drag race. They were Mopars. And it literally had a little shifter on it. Every so many sections of track, you had to shift to another gear, or the car would stop.
They had the little Hearst shifter things, right?
Yeah, it was the little spring loaded. It had a built-in.
Yeah. I remember that.
And so my plan was to do something similar to that, where you'd have to. So, I mean, I'm not looking for a drag strip where these guys who race competitively, they're turning 1 second laps or, runs down the strip and stuff it into a pillow. I'm looking for something more to run. I can pick up any pair of slot cars from my track and do a drag race.
Mm-hmm.
So just something fun. I'll probably route it out of wood and, copper tape it and just make them separate segments. So every segment, you actually have to push a button, or I actually thought about making a shifter console where you literally had to throw a shifter when you get to the next part of the track. So
perfect.
I, for one, look forward to that project. And on that note, we're going to end the recording. As always, you guys can hang around and chit chat. But for now, we will wave goodbye, and we'll see you all next time. Bye.
Thanks, gents. Have a good one.